not be knowing, you might have missed. So let us have a stock of that. First of all, what are the relevant laws with respect to merger and acquisition? Which law has to be taken into consideration, or which law will be applicable? So primarily, the first law which will be applicable in respect of merger and acquisition is the Companies Act. Because merger and acquisition, this question comes only in respect of companies. There cannot be, or even though there will be merger and acquisition, but we are not interested in that. Our interest lies in the merger and acquisition of two companies. So what is company? Any company which is registered under Companies Act. So by definition, the definition of a company is an independent legal entity registered under Companies Act, which have a perpetual succession, common seal, capital fund consisting of transferable shares, and having limited liability. So this is a company. So if there are more than one companies, or two or more than two companies, so there can be merger or acquisition of these companies. So first law which will be applicable in respect of merger and acquisition is Companies Act. Second law is Competition Act 2002. And prior to Competition Act, there was an MRTP Act, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1991, it says that you cannot create a monopoly. First, monopoly, restrictive and unfair trade practices. Three trade practices were prohibited under MRTP Act. Monopolies, like you cannot create monopoly. Now, how will you create monopoly? Suppose there are only two companies in the market and both of them have decided to merge. So what will happen? There will be only one company and ultimately there will be monopoly of that company. So this, if you are trying to create monopoly, so that kind of merger will not be allowed. Okay, and if you are trying to create some restrictive trade practices, suppose there are two or three companies and all the companies came together and they have decided to adopt certain trade practices which will be restrictive in nature. Restrictive means by virtue of that particular policy or merger and acquisition, other companies were not allowed to operate smoothly or enter into the market freely. That is restrictive. And third one was unfair trade practices. Like if you are adopting some unfair trade practices. So this was MRTP. But in the year 2002, MRTP Act was not fully replaced, but another act was brought, that is Competition Act. Because MRTP Act was restrictive, it was negative. Competition Act is promoting competition. You are allowed to go for merger and acquisition so far as it is not prohibiting competition. It is not against the competition in the market. So Competition Act 2002, these are actually in context of India. So Companies Act and Competition Act, these are the two acts which we have to take into account while dealing with merger and acquisition. Now there are certain procedural aspects. First one is the examining the object clause. If company A and company B, both of them are thinking to go for merger or acquisition, so can they go for it simply just by thinking? They can go only when there is a specific provision in their object clause of the memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of association. MOA, this is the very important document. MOA means Memorandum of Association. So this is just like a constitution of a company. Just like a constitution of our country runs within the framework given by the constitution. Similarly, a company also runs within the framework given by its constitution, which is popularly known as Memorandum of Association. Now, Memorandum of Association, there are certain clauses: object clause, name clause, registered office clause, business clause, capital clause. The different clauses are there. I think the name itself are self-explanatory. Means what will be there in the name clause? Name of the company will be written. What will be there in the object clause? Objective of the company will be written. Capital clause, that is how much capital will be there of that company, this will be written. Business clause, what will be the main business of the company. Registered office clause, where the registered office of the company will be located. But here, when we have to go for the merger and acquisition, the very merger and memorandum of association, it says that we have to look into the objective clause of the memorandum of association, because if memorandum is not specifically or impliedly allowing for the merger and acquisition, we cannot go for that. Or suppose company A is in the business of information technology and company B is in the business of hospital or hospitality, and objective clause, there is no mention of that company can also go into hospital business. So can this merger took place? By virtue of its object clause, this merger cannot be. It cannot be made possible, because the object clause of company A, it says that company A can run and maintain a business only in the area of information technology. So there is no mention of that company A can also enter into business of hospital. So it cannot. So if such kind of merger and acquisition has to happen, what has to be done first? First of all, there has to be a change into the memorandum of association. And changing memorandum of association is just like constitutional amendment of our country. Lot of stress has to be taken by the directors of the company, because changing memorandum of association requires calling annual general meeting of all the shareholders, and it has to be approved by the shareholders. Then only the object clause can be changed. Is that clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I have a question.
Yes.
If any company, just like Tata, become a conglomerate by acquiring so many company in that field, so many small company he has acquired in the field.
I got your question. Tata is not a company. Tata is a group. When we have to think about company, it is you have to be specific. Like Tata Steel Limited is a company. Tata Motors Limited is a company. Tata Consultancy Services is a company. And when there is a merger and acquisition, so we have to think, we have to see the object clause of that specific company. Like Tata Steel Limited and its memorandum of association of Tata Steel has to be seen when it is going for acquiring, say, Corus Steel of Britain. Okay. So Tata itself or Tata per se is not a company. Tata is a group. Reliance Industries Limited is a company, but Reliance as a whole is a group. Or Reliance ADAG is a group, but we have to see specifically the object clause of that particular company, because every company is an independent legal entity in itself. Okay. Okay. Now come to the next process, examining the capital clause. Now capital clause, why this capital clause has to be examined? Suppose company A is having its capital, just take an hypothetical example. Company A's capital is, say, 60 lakh. It is very low. Just for the sake of understanding, think it. That company A's capital is 60 lakh. That is the paid up capital. And I told you that in the capital clause of memorandum of association, the authorized capital of the company is written, and based on its authorized capital, how much authorized capital you have written, the company have to pay its registration fees. Means if higher is the capital, authorized capital, the company have to pay more fees. Lesser is the authorized capital, company have to pay lesser fees for registering it. Okay. Now suppose the authorized capital of the company is only 1 crore. That is the authorized capital. Authorized capital means this 1 crore is the capital that the company can raise in its lifetime. Out of that 1 crore, how much is the present capital of the company? It's 60 lakh. Now company A is trying to acquire the business of, say, company B. So what will happen? The shareholders of company B will also be issued shares, proportionate shares in the company A, and it means company A will have to issue more number of shares to the shareholders of company B. Now suppose the shareholders of company B, as a company B is also a company which is almost equal to that of company A, so means its value is also 60 lakh. So company A is 60 lakh and company B is also 60 lakh. So 60 lakh plus 60 lakh, it is 1 crore 20 lakhs. But what is the authorized capital of this company?
1
Yes,
crore.
1 crore. So can this company go for merger?
No, sir.
No. Why? What is coming in its way? Its capital clause.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because it cannot issue capital more than 1 crore. And if company A acquires company B, its total capital is coming out to be 1.2 crore. Got the point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now in this case, what the company A have to do? Again, company A have to go for amendment of its merger memorandum of association, and it has to raise its capital clause, the authorized capital limit given in its capital clause, and then only it can go for merger and acquisition. So these are some of the issues which has to be seen while going for the merger and acquisition. Then when a company A is going to acquire company B, whether it is a merger or acquisition, then intimation to the stock exchange. But when the intimation to the stock exchange has to be given, if it is listed on any of the stock exchanges, suppose company A is listed on say BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, so the information will go to which stock exchange? To the Bombay Stock Exchange only. It will not go to the National Stock Exchange or New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq. But if company A is listed on say NSE, BSE, NYSE or Nasdaq, suppose 4 stock exchanges, so this information will go to all the 4 stock exchanges simultaneously. But what about company B? If company B is also a listed company, then it will also intimate to its own stock exchange where its shares are listed. But if company B is not a listed company, it need not to give any intimation to the stock exchange. For example, Vodafone and Idea deal. Idea is a listed company, but Vodafone is not listed in India. So when this Idea and Vodafone have to merge, information will go to the stock exchange where the shares of Idea Limited were listed. That Idea Limited is going to acquire or going to merge with Vodafone Limited, and ultimately this has to be there. Approval of draft merger a proposal by respective board. Then this proposal of merger, the draft will be placed in the meeting of board of directors, and the board have to approve it, that it is going for this merger and acquisition. Though the money will go directly to the shareholders or the shares will be issued to the shareholders, but it has to route it through the board. If it is not routed through the board, then this is a case of hostile takeover, okay, which is prohibited as per the takeover code issued by SEBI in 1997, that if company A is going to acquire or merge with company B, then it has to be routed through its board of directors. Then application to the High Court. High courts, here see I have used the term high courts, S. Now why application to the high courts? Because it may so happen that two companies which are going for the merger, both of them might be situated in two different states. Suppose a company registered in UP is going to acquire a company registered in Karnataka. So there are two high courts. One is Allahabad High Court and another is the Karnataka High Court. Okay, so the company A, it is situated in UP, so it will file an application in Allahabad High Court. There is an appropriate bench which listens to all these queries, and company B, which is actually registered in Karnataka, so it will file an application in Karnataka High Court for getting approval for merger. Why this High Court is required? Because this merger company is a public limited company. Public interest is also involved in this merger and acquisition. So a company, if it is going to merge with another company, the stake of lakhs and crores of shareholders, employees, public, the environment, all these issues, competition, government, all these issues has to be seen, and that's why judicious vetting is required, and that's why application to the High Court is there. High Court will put it application on its website or for a public notice, where anyone having any objection can go and just by submitting an impleadment petition can become a party to that particular application, and after a certain time, High Court will grant approval for this merger, and then only a company can go for merger and acquisition deal. Then notice to the shareholders and creditors. Why this application to the High Court is there? Because this entire merger and acquisition process has to be within the notice of High Court. Whether a notice is given to the shareholders or not, notice is given to the creditors or not, notice is given to the employees, consent of the draft proposal by the board is taken or not, if there is any change in the object clause, whether it is there or not, capital clause, whether it is allowing or not, all this process has to be looked after by the High Court, because High Court, we believe that they are expert, they are the people who have a very judicious bent of mind, and that's why this High Court is also involved in all this merger and acquisition. It's not like a closed door meeting that, okay, company A and company, both of them decided to go for merger and acquisition and they can do it. It's a public affair. And then once this notice to the shareholders, creditors, all these things are there, then again a petition to the High Courts for confirmation of merger is to be filed. That, okay, we have complied with all the formalities, and there are no questions, there are no dissent received from any of the parties, and that's why the merger petition has to be confirmed. And if everything goes correct, High Court normally allows for this merger and acquisition deal. Then the order of High Court has to be filed with the Registrar of Companies, and transfer of assets and liabilities will take place then. Like I told you at the very beginning of the class, that all the assets and all the liabilities of the transferor company will become the assets and liability of the transferee company. Okay, so this transfer will take place, not physically, but at least in the books, this transfer will take place in the books of account. Like old books, the company which is actually transferring its assets and liabilities, so in its own book, all these assets and liabilities will be closed, or it will be transferred to the new entity. Issue of shares and debentures, as I told you that the new company or the transferee company will issue shares and debentures to the shareholders and debenture holders of the transferor company in the agreed ratio. What happens in case of cross-border merger and acquisitions? So in respect of cross-border merger and acquisition, the formalities will be almost same, specifically other than for some of the specific issues which requires a cross-border examination. For example, application to the High Courts. It may so happen that in India we have filed an application to our High Court in India, but a foreign entity where it is located, it may not be having a High Court and it may have a different law. So company A, which is situated in India, it will comply with Indian laws, Companies Act and the Competition Act. But a company B, which is suppose situated in, say, Uganda, okay, you people are very familiar with USA, but suppose it is situated in Uganda, and in Uganda the political situation, the economic situation, the cultural situation, everything is very different and turbulent. So the laws in respect of merger and acquisition in Uganda will be applicable for company B, and for company A the laws in respect of merger and acquisition for India will be applicable. Okay, but again you just go through the things. Examining the object clause, company A which is situated in India, it has to comply with the object clause, it has to comply with the capital clause, it has to give an intimation to the stock exchange that it is going to acquire a company located in Uganda. Then its draft merger proposal has to be approved by its own board. It has to file an application in Indian High Court, notice to its own shareholders, petition to the High Court for confirmation. It has to be there. Then filing of the order of, and these things will there. Okay, but when there is a cross-border merger and acquisition, then there are some restrictions or some challenges in fact. Okay, now what are those challenges? I told you, I have given an assignment also in the last class, that whenever there is a cross-border merger like international merger and acquisition, there are certain issues, some strategic issues, some cultural issues, some accounting issues, finance issues, currency issues are there. So these issues has to be tackled. Most of the issues may not be actually legal issues but operative issues. That a company A which is situated in India, its accounting year comes to an end on 31st of March. But a company B, which is situated in USA or any other country, Uganda or Ethiopia or Nigeria, its accounting year will come to an end on 31st of December. And suppose on 31st of March, this merger and acquisition is taking place. So company A's accounts are fully closed and balanced. But for company B, which is situated in any other country, its accounts are just 3 months old. Like January, February, March, 3 महीने का भी account खुला हुआ है. Now it has to be dealt very judiciously and very adequately. Currency issues. Company A, which is situated in India, its account will be written in terms of rupee, but the company B, which is supposed situated in Italy, its currency will be recorded in lira, or Japan, it will be in yen. So that currency translation has to take place, or at which rate this has to be there. So all these issues has to be taken very adequately, properly. Official liquidator is another term. Because suppose liquidator, when a company have to appoint liquidator, when the company go for liquidation, then it has to appoint one liquidator. नाम है liquidator, like जिसका काम ही होता है डब्बा बंद करके कंपनी को बंद कर दो, liquidator. Now when a company goes for liquidation, then in that case a liquidator has to be appointed in the supervision of High Court. Here also High Court is there. इसीलिए हाई कोर्ट में एप्लीकेशन लगता है. नाउ व्हाई कंपनी विल हैव टू बी क्लोज्ड? सपोज देयर आर टू कंपनीज, कंपनी ए एंड कंपनी बी, एंड सपोज कंपनी बी इज गोइंग टू बी मर्ज्ड विद कंपनी ए. इट मींस दैट from now onward company B will be closed and all the assets and liabilities of company B will become the assets and liabilities of company A. Means there won't be any existence of company B, meaning thereby company B is liquidated fully. And if company B has to be liquidated, then official liquidator has to be appointed in the supervision of court by the High Court. And the official liquidator, what will be his job? Just to liquidate company B. He will be doing, he will be realizing all the assets, or may not be for selling purpose, but he will record it in his books of account for the new company. All the liabilities has to be settled, all the dues has to be settled, all the legal formalities has to be completed for the liquidation of company B, and then it will be transferred to company A. Or suppose company A and company B, like just like in Vodafone, in Idea, Vodafone, there is no identity of Vodafone, there is no identity of Idea. Vodafone is closed, Idea is closed, and the new identity, new company is Vodafone Idea Limited, VIL. Now, what will be the job of official liquidator? Official liquidator will close the accounts of Vodafone Limited. Official liquidator will liquidate or close the accounts of Idea Limited, and all the assets and liabilities of Vodafone Limited and Idea Limited will be transferred to Vodafone Idea Limited, a new company. Means official liquidator will liquidate both the earlier companies. So this is official liquidator. It has to be there in a company. In case of merger and acquisition of companies, who will be appointing? High Court. Now, the government of India have brought a single window concept for merger and acquisition, because you have seen that there are a lot of formalities has to be done in respect of merger and acquisition. So, in order to smoothen the process, a single window concept has been brought by the government of India, so that only you have to go only to one window, and from there only the entire processing of merger and acquisition will be complete, just to smoothen the process. Now, how the shares will be valued? The valuation of shares of company involved in the scheme of merger is mandatory. So it is mandatory. You cannot simply say that both the parties are agreeing and that we are not going for any valuation. It cannot happen. You have to compulsorily go for the valuation of shares of the companies. And who will value? There will be a valuer. Again, it is appointed by the court, High Court. Official valuer is there, so that particular valuer will do the valuation of shares of the companies which are involved in the scheme of merger and acquisition. And where an audit committee is mandatory for a company, the task of appointing the valuer should be entrusted to the audit committee. Now, what is audit committee? If you want to understand audit committee or any committee, you need to understand first the concept of corporate governance. Now, what is corporate governance? How the company is governed so that it's the interest of its shareholders is taken care of. So the idea is that the independent directors in the company, they should have exercise over the executive directors. If you just see the structure of the board of directors of any company, you will find that there are two category of directors, or the entire board of directors can be classified into two groups. One is the executive directors and another is the non-executive director or independent directors. Executive directors are those like who are just like an employee of the company, like director sales, director finance, director purchase, director operations. Okay, so they are actually employee of the company, and there are some non-executive directors or independent directors. Like you'll find that the director of IIM Ahmedabad is also on the board of ONGC. The director of IIM Lucknow or some other persons like eminent personalities, uh, social persons, they are on the board of some of the companies.
Sir, independent director is paid by whom?
No, he is not paid. He is not employee.
Then why he indulge in this his affair without having any?
Yeah, coming to that, he is or she is a person who is known in his field or in her field, and they are not employee of the company. Their business is something else. Okay, so they are just paid sitting fees for just becoming a part or just taking part in the meeting of the board of directors. So they are just paid sitting allowances. That's the job of independent directors. Like Mr. N.K. Modi is the chairman of the board of governors of IIITA. So now N.K. Modi, this chairman of the Modi group, he is not an employee of IIIT, just he is the chairman. So similarly, N.K. Modi can be the director, or Ratan Tata can be a non-executive director in the board of Modi group or Reliance group, as the case may be. Okay, so now Ratan Tata is not an employee of say Modi group or Reliance group. But he is just made nominated into the board of that particular company, so he has to exercise control. So all this audit committee, remuneration committee, social responsibility committee, all these committees are actually headed by this non-executive directors. So here this question is that valuation of shares, in whose supervision this valuation of share has to be take place. So if there is an audit committee, then this audit committee will supervise the valuation of shares. Okay, so these are some of the things which I just wanted to tell you